This is the plaintiff, Pamela. She says she rented a room in the defendant's trailer, then found out it was in a bad part of town, and she wants her money back. The defendant isn't even allowed to rent a room in her trailer, and she's suing her for the $850 she's owed. This is the defendant, Anna Ramirez. She says the plaintiff called her to tell her she couldn't rent the room because of some kind of personal problem. She's sorry, but she took the room off the market for the month and owes no refund. She's accused of not budging.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff says she rented a room in the defendant's trailer and says it turns out this was in a very bad area of town, so she moved out and now can't get her money back. But the defendant says the plaintiff never moved in and tried to cancel her tenancy over the phone. She took the room off the market and owes nothing. It's the case of I Ain't Budging.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
All right, Ms. Pamela, so how was it that you found the room in Ms. Ramirez's trailer to rent? Was it advertised? Was it word of mouth?
Yeah, advertised.
Okay. So you go over there, you take a look at it, and you liked it, and you ended up giving her how much money?
$850. And $650 was for the rent, and the $200 was a third of the deposit.
All right, and you did that on what day?
10/28 of 20.
Okay, so you had, at that time, you had every intention of renting the place, is that correct?
Correct.
So what happened? What made you change your mind?
Well, when I went over and paid that, I came back and talked to my roommate that I live with here now, and she's just telling me it's just a bad area, there's nothing around, I'm not near the grocery stores. And then I explained to her the stove didn't work, and I didn't know that till that day. I thought the stove worked. So after I paid...
Did you know that before or after you gave your money?
After.
And did she mention she was going to buy a new stove, or what did she say she was going to do about the broken stove?
I think she said she was going to replace it one day.
Okay, all right. So go on.
So I text her back, I text her, I think, or called her and said, I just changed my mind the same day. I changed my mind. I'm not going to rent the room. And then she had texted me, well, you'll have to wait till my payday. I will pay you then. And then she changed her mind and said, nope, you're not getting it. I said, okay, so I'll get my lawyer. She says, okay, I'll talk to your lawyer. And then I said, well, I'm taking you to small claims court. She said, okay, I'll wait for the paperwork.
All right, so now, in the meantime, right, I know it was the same day. In the meantime, you end up going to the management office of the trailer park, correct?
Correct, because I couldn't read her last name on the receipt of the money I gave her. I couldn't read the last name, so I had to have the last name for small claims court. So the only way
I'm
to
confused.
get it was,
are you going to move in with someone whose name you didn't even know?
That's correct.
I know. Maybe you should know and do a little research into the people. I mean, at a minimum on the internet to see what, like to know who you're moving in with. She could be a homicidal maniac or something. I'm not saying you're a homicidal maniac. I'm just saying, So you needed her last name, so you go to the management office. And what does the management office tell you?
There was a lady there, and I gave her first name. She goes, well, I can't give you any information because of the privacy law. If you have a deputy come out here, I can give it to him and he can hand it to you. So that's what I did. And now, meanwhile, I had a stroke a couple years ago. So sometimes I don't think straight. I really don't. Sometimes I'm just like.
Okay. I didn't have a stroke a couple years ago, but sometimes I don't think straight too. So I get what you're saying. But let me ask you, did they give you any other information? Did the management office say anything about you and your ability to lease and, whether she's allowed to rent it out or anything about that?
Yeah, she wanted to know why I wanted her last name. I said, well, I'm renting a room from her. She says, oh, well, there's no renters in here. You can't do that. So I explained to her, well, she already has a renter in there. And she said, no, that she can't do that.
Now, is it that she can't do that or she can't do that without their approval?
She said there's nobody in that trailer park can rent to somebody else, a room to somebody else in there. That was the rules.
So, Ms. Ramirez, let me talk to you. Ms. Pamela comes there, and according to her, she hands you the money, and then after that, you're showing her the place, and you explain to her the stove doesn't work? Is that correct?
No, Your Honor. She had answered an ad that I have on Marketplace on Facebook. When she came and seen the room, she liked it. I thought she was the perfect person for the room, being that we're both at the same age. I have a 13-year-old that I'm raising here. I want no drama. She was having problems. She texted
Can you tell me when
every
you
day.
told her about the stove? Tell me about the stove.
It was on a text, and it was also verbal.
Did you tell her about the broken stove before or after you took her rent?
Oh, way before. Way before.
Okay, so you have that on text.
When she came to see it,
Do you have any proof that you told her about the stove being broken by text?
no, ma'am.
Okay, all right. So now she gives you the money and she changes her mind. And you say to her, well, you're going to have to wait and see if I re-rent it or something like that. But you don't re-rent it and you don't return the money. What is your position on this? That she doesn't get to change her mind and that was a contract between you two and she breached the contract?
Your Honor, when she seen the place on the 21st, I took it off the market because I thought she was going to be an excellent roommate, somebody my age, somebody without any drama. From the 21st to the 28th, she texted me, we talked, everything was perfect. When she came on the 28th, she came in a Uber. She came, she looked at the room. She looked at the room 4 times. When she came in the Uber, I told her, you okay? She said, fine. She signed the rent receipt. She gave me the money. We were supposed to meet so that I can help her get adjusted in the room. That was it.
So then she calls you and she tells you that she's not going to rent.
4 hours
and
later.
she changed her mind.
And the reason she said she could not move in, Your Honor, she said to me, I cannot move in. My probation officer will not let me move in. You need to give me my money back. I don't know
Okay.
why you're laughing because.
And did you say?
Okay.
And did you say what probation officer? Did you say what are you on
That's
probation
exactly what
for?
that is exactly
And
what
what
I
did
told
she
her.
answer?
Because
And what did she
she
answer?
said, I don't want to talk about it. I want my money back.
Miss Pamela, I have a question for you. Are you on probation?
Yes, I am. And I don't think it's relevant
Okay, well,
to
she
this
wouldn't
case.
have. Right, but how would she know that if you hadn't, in fact, said that to her that you weren't allowed to move there because of the probation?
let
She
me
wouldn't know you were on
speak.
probation.
Right, I told her that before I rented the room, before I paid her.
Okay.
She knew that. She goes,
All right.
don't let the front people in the front know that you're on probation or you're renting here.
Let me ask you a question, Ms. Ramirez. Apparently, there's some rules and
Yes.
regulations in your park. And what are the
That is
rules and
correct.
regulations about renting?
I own my home. So I
Yeah,
am
but
allowed.
what are the rules and regulations about whether you
What-
can rent?
Anybody can rent here. What you have to do is you have to put the person under your lease with the office. Then at the office, they approve them or they don't.
Or they don't approve
can
them.
call
Now,
out-
none of that had
Correct.
happened. Right, I know. And none of that had happened. Now, here's the thing. People don't get
Yes,
to put
ma'am.
their money down and then change their mind. There's a consequence to entering into a verbal contract with someone. You hand the money, they take it off the market, and that's it. You struck a deal. So under normal circumstances, I would just look at her and say, too bad, so sad for you, Ms. Pamela, that you changed your mind. You don't get to have your money back. She would certainly always get the deposit back. It's the rent she wouldn't get back because all you would have at that moment is a month-to-month tenancy and a person saying, I changed my mind. So under no circumstances would you ever be able to keep the 200. But certainly it would sound like under these circumstances that you would get to keep the 650. The problem that we have in this case is that you don't have a lease because what you have the beginnings of one because in your place, you have to have her approved before you have a lease. So why wouldn't she be right that she's entitled to the 650 back also when that other critical part of making the lease happen had not happened? You hadn't given her the information, she hadn't submitted it, and they hadn't approved her. None of that had happened yet. That's when that happens is when you have a completed lease.
Your Honor, as you just said, that she said to me that she was on probation prior to that day. If that would have been true, then she would have known that she couldn't have moved in here because the rules are the rules. I follow the rules here. There's nothing here that I am doing illegal in my home. Okay, I live right around the corner
right,
from
but
the
I don't
office.
know that you're allowed to. I don't think you're allowed to rent to the person who's living with you unless they approve that person. Did they approve that person?
If
The
she
person who's
didn't
living
have
with
any
you
type
who's-
of, if she's on
Are you
probation
listening
or
to my
something like that,
question?
I don't know.
No. You're not listening
Yes,
to my
ma'am.
question. The
I
person
apologize.
who lives with you, I don't know if they still live with you, but who was living with you, was that person paying rent?
Yes, his mother.
And was that person approved by the office?
No, he is not approved.
That's right. So you don't follow the
He's only
rules.
19
Right,
years
but you
old.
don't follow
He has to be 21.
So that's not.
Has to be 21
Then
to
why?
be
Then you
approved in
don't.
the office.
Then
Neither
you
is my
right.
grandson,
So
Your Honor.
your way, right? But so what
Yes,
you
ma'am.
do is, if the rules aren't going to work for you, then you just don't follow them. Because what you need to do in order to follow the rules is get the approval for the rental. So since there was no approval for the rental, there is no rental that I can enforce. I can't look at her and say you had a completed rental agreement because there was no approval by the office. So I am ordering you to return the $850. Verdict for the plaintiff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
So the plaintiff is going to get her $850 back. Ms. Ramirez, what do you think about that? What do you think about the judge's decision?
You know what? I just didn't want the headache. I'm fine with that. I was fine with that in the beginning. You know, it's just a bunch of nonsense on her part. Other than that, the judge is fair. I mean, I watch her every day. It is what it is.
Okay, very good. Well, you've got to
Thank
give
you.
it back to her now. That's the judge's verdict. Okay, Ms. Pamela, how do you feel about this? I'm sure you're relieved, I guess is the proper way to put it, right?
Yes, correct. I'm relieved, but I didn't want this to happen either. She's really a nice lady. I'm sorry all this had to happen to her.
Okay. Thank you and congratulations.
Okay, Terry wants to know this. Hey, Harvey, if pets are considered property, then why are the vet bills not capped at the value of the pet at the time of the loss or injury? That, my friend, is a great question. I suppose technically you could be right that it shouldn't be more. But the fact is, a lot of judges are humane and they realize that, especially with vet bills, you can't just look at the value of the animal to bring the animal back to health. To bring it back to health, it may cost more. Judges are willing to do that, and I applaud it. That'll do it for this case. Litigants for the next case inside the courtroom.